Welcome to 7.7's Math Moment. Today students worked with ratios and rates. So we are going to look at the first example, and I want to remind you of the three different ways that we've learned in Unit 7 to work with rates, ratios, and proportions. We have learned about factor puzzles, which is a review from Unit 1. We have learned about cross multiplying, and then isolating the variable with division, and then we've also learned to use tape diagrams. So depending on which strategy your student likes the best, and also some situations that you read, one of these strategies lends itself to the problem a little easier than another. It really can depend on which strategy that you use. So I always have the students kind of decide which one they think would work best based off of the situation, and sometimes it might not be their favorite strategy, but it's the only strategy that will get them the answer the easiest. So we're going to look at the example and kind of think through which one would be easy. So it says a factory is making 200 cans every 5 minutes. How long will it take the factory to make 500 cans? So I could use a factor puzzle with this, but when I'm thinking about 200 cans every 5 minutes, 500 cans, how long that would be, I might be working with a decimal here because that doesn't quite work evenly. So a better strategy might be cross multiplication. So I'm going to set this up just like I would a factor puzzle. 200 cans every 5 minutes, 500 cans. How long will it take? That's my X. That's the part I do not know. I could connect this and make it a factor puzzle, and I would probably be able to find my answer, but it's going to be a little bit easier to just go ahead and cross multiply. So I want these two ratios to equal each other, and to do that I just need to cross multiply. So 200 times X is 200X. 500 times 5, well, all I have to do is take 5 times 5, which gives me 25, and then add my two zeros. Now I have 200x equals 2,500. Now I want to get the x by itself. That's called isolating the variable. To isolate the variable and get it by itself on that side, I just have to do the opposite operation. So right now this is 200 times x, so I'll need to take 200 divided by 200 in order to move it to this other side. And then I'm left with 2,500 divided by 200, and that answer should get me x. So I'm going to go ahead and divide. Now, a nice trick with division of zeros is if I have zeros on the outside number and the inside number, I can take those zeros off and I don't have to put them back on. So it makes the problem a lot easier to work with and easier to look at. The only thing you have to remember is I have to take off the same amount of zeros on the inside and the outside number. Now this example, they both have two zeros, so I get to take them both off and I don't have to put them back on. So this is the same as 25 divided by 2. 2 goes into 2 one time with nothing left over. 2 goes into 5, 2, 4, that'd be 2 times, with 1 left over to be 12 and a half or 12.5. So my x would equal 12 and a half or 12 and 5/10 depending on which form of the number I'd like it to be in, fraction or decimal. So in this case, it was definitely easier to go ahead and cross multiply. If we would have done a factor puzzle, I would have been working with decimal numbers, which is really tricky to do in a factor puzzle. Example 2 says, it takes Stephen 3 hours to mow 5 acres of grass. So that is my first proportion or ratio there, 3 hours for 5 acres. Daniel mows the same rate as Stephen. So how long will it take the two of them working together to mow 15 acres of grass? So even though we've kind of been thrown a curveball here and we've shown that we're going to have two of them working together on this, I first need to decide how much would it take for just one person to do that job. And then since they're both working at the same rate, we'll be able to tackle that in an easier way later on. So first I'm just going to focus on Stephen and think about how much would it take or how long would it take for him to complete that 15 acres of mowing. So I'm going to go ahead and use a factor puzzle here, and the reason that I'm choosing to use a factor puzzle for this problem when I did it for the problem up below, or up ahead, is because I can see that all of these numbers, 3, 5, and 15, have some things in common. So because they have some things in common, I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to get a whole number that I could be working with. Now, if your student just says, you know, I really want to try cross multiplication instead, that would work also. So factor puzzle or cross multiplication, either way you'll get your answer. So I see that 5 and 15 have a 5 in common, so it's going to shoot straight across. 5 times 1 gives me 5, so that's going to shoot straight here. 1 times what gives me 3? Well, that would be 3, shoots across. 5 times what gives me 15? That would be 3, goes straight up. 3 times 3 would be 9. So right now I know that it would take 9 hours to mow 15 acres. But that's not what the question asks me. The question says, how long will it take the two of them working together to mow that 15 acres? Well, I know that if it takes one of them 9 hours, and I have two people that are working at the exact same rate, all I have to do is chop that 9 in half. And in math, when we chop something in half, it's just dividing by 2. So I'm going to take 9 divided by 2, and that stands for Stephen and also Daniel. 2 times what gives me close to 9? That would be 4, which gives me 8. 9 minus 8 is 1, so that would leave me with 4.5, or 4.5, same thing. It would take them that many hours working together to mow 15 acres. If you have any questions about lesson 7.7, make sure to see your math teacher.